And then there's a workshop right over there. So if you do have a hard time hearing me, just give me the sign and I'll pump up the volume. Usually it's not a problem for me coming from a big Italian family. Right? I got about 176,000 cousins on this side. Most of them are named Tony. I got about 267,000 cousins on this side. Most of them are named Tony. So family gatherings are interesting and very loud, very loud. So welcome and thank you so much to the Planning Committee for allowing me the opportunity to spend some time with you today. We have about an hour together. I'm not going to be talking the whole time. Hopefully, you're going to have some opportunity to do some chatting with each other as well as part of the goals. One of the goals of this day is to provide an opportunity for you to connect with each other. So I hope that we have some time to do that. So before we get started, I want to do one thing. I'm just going to sit down. Okay. So that's it. We're done. Any questions? So it's May. Guess what? We made it. Everybody, big sigh, unclench. And what I want to do is acknowledge that I'm in the presence of greatness. I, Tony Conte, Brad Pitt doppelganger, I'm in the presence of greatness. Is this true? Yeah, there's one person in the back saying yes, he's talking about me. I'm talking about all of you. We have come through another academic year. Serving students, serving staff, serving faculty, moving things forward, building a campus experience that is amazing not only for our students, but for our faculty and for our staff. We work really, really hard. I think that you'll see after coming out of the presentation that Sheldon just gave, just how far Ryerson has come, just how much we have done, just how much more work there is yet to do, right? You are the reason why that's all happened. You are the central nervous system of this organization. And so what I want to acknowledge is that I'm in the presence of greatness. And we don't do this often enough. I just want to acknowledge how amazing you all are, how amazing the work you do is, no matter how far away from the front line you think you may be, really you're very close to it. And so I want to give you a standing ovation for the work that you've done, for the work that you still have yet to do, to acknowledge all the greatness that you have. And if you can, please stand or just wave your hands in the air to give your colleagues right next to you a standing ovation to thank them for this awesome year. Let's do that. Just give them a standing ovation. Give them a little wave. Well done. We've made it through another academic year. High fives. I see high fives. So what we're going to talk about today, when I thought about this session, there are so many things to talk about with regards to leadership and empowerment. And what I realized after I did my master's degree was that I know a whole lot of nothing about leadership. And that there's far, far more to learn than what I studied in the 2 years that I did that. And so what I'm going to share with you today is just a small snippet, a very, very small snippet, and a piece that's near and dear to my heart. And that is relationship building and informal and formal network building, because I think that they're critical. So, as we get started. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about the value of reflection and self-awareness. Now, these two words sometimes trigger a lot of people. Sometimes we think about these two words and don't immediately go to organization, success, right? We don't think about it in a corporate context necessarily or a broad organizational context. But I'm here to tell you that it's critical to every organization to engage in these two behaviors, both at a personal level and at an organizational level. Talk about some key ingredients to building positive relationships and the value of building a network. When I said in the write-up about this session, with ever-shrinking resources, with the constant drive to do more, do better, to continue to be innovative, to continue to be the city builder, how are we going to sustain that energy, that motivation? How are we going to keep that going? How are we going to build on what we're doing so that we're always, what I'm calling right now, and what one of my students said, the it school. Ryerson right now is the it school, right? Another student came up to me and said, you've got street cred that you're not even aware of. So we have street cred. I had to go look that up. No idea. So how are we going to sustain that? And what I put forward to you is we do that together. And we do that through building relationships. I'm going to give you a chance to do some networking using an exercise that I did years ago back with a woman named Barbara Scheer. Anyone familiar with Barbara Scheer? She's a career guru. Did a great workshop And this is an exercise she did, so I thought we'd share it today because I thought it fit in nicely with the idea of networking. And hopefully along the way we'll have a laugh or two. At any point, put up your hand, share an insight, tell me I'm wrong, agree or disagree with what I have to say. I just urge you to please do one of those two things. And I know it's cold, so if you need to, please stand up and walk around. Hug. We'll need full consent on that, please. Thank you. We do have some HR people in the room. Okay? So, when I think about leadership and talk about reflection, this first exercise we're doing is going to give us an example of what I mean. I just said that I did 2 years at the University of Guelph on leadership, and while I was doing that work, I realized that I learned a lot about leadership, not only in that program, not only from my work experience, but also from my cute Italian mom. Now, none of you have met my cute Italian mom. She comes up to about here on me, right? Both my parents. They're totally spherical, right? And they orbit me everywhere I go. I'm the earth, they are my moons. They're sitting right now in the parking lot just waiting for me. Right now. Excuse me, ma'am, you're legally parked. No, that's okay. My son Tony, he do the talk. Shh, quiet. That's how my mother talks. She makes up her own words. She makes up her own words, but she always imparts wisdom whenever she can. So I was visiting her one day. My mother's kind of like the town counselor. Everybody tells her everything because my mother's a vault. She keeps all the secrets. But she tells them all to me. So I go home for a visit, and Mom's, the traditional mom, making the sugo, making the Italian sauce, and she starts updating me on what's happening in the neighborhood. And she says, I'm going to tell you, but you got to be careful, okay? I don't want people call me the apricot. What, Ma? I don't want people calling me the apricot. Say again? I don't understand what you mean. You should know. You go to school. No idea. Not a clue. Not a clue. So I looked to my dad, who can sometimes decipher her hieroglyphics. I said, Dad, he goes, I got no idea. I said, Ma, what do you mean apricot? Oh, I got to explain everything on you. You know when you say something on the face, you turn it around, you say something different on the back. Ma, that's a hypocrite. That's what I said, apricot. So speak your truth and be authentic. Don't be an apricot. Okay, so we're going to start because we have a limited amount of time to try and do a little bit of interaction with each other. So this first exercise, I'm going to ask you to do just on your own. And I'd like you to take a few minutes. You could do it in your head, or you could write it down, or do it on your tablet or on your phone, or you could tweet it out if you wish. Just want you to go through in your own mind some of these questions, and I will read them out loud for those who may not be able to read the screen. So take a few moments to write responses to the following questions. Identify one of your greatest achievements so far. Identify one of your greatest achievements so far. Please share 3 talents, gifts, or things at which you excel. You know how many times I had to rewrite that sentence because I didn't want to end in a preposition? Please tell me what you're good at. Couldn't do that. Please identify a goal you have for the future. What's the biggest obstacle to achieving that goal? When I'm stuck, I usually, please finish the sentence. One area for growth is, please finish the sentence. And then if you ask my work peer or peers about me, they would say that, ... I'm going to ask you to reflect on and think about each of those questions. After a few minutes, I'm only going to ask you to share the response to one of those questions with the person sitting next to you. You could do that in a little group of 3. You could do it with the person sitting next to you in 2s. You could do it in 4s. Whatever feels good. You don't have to get up and move at this point. So just think about these few questions for a few moments. And then I'm going to ask you to talk about one of these questions with the person sitting next to you. And I'm going to tell you which one that is. So for those people who just want to get the homework done right away, I'm going to ask you to share 3 of the talents, gifts, or abilities that you have. What are you good at? I want you to share those 3 things with the person next to you or the folks beside you when you feel ready. When I call time, we're just going to talk a little bit about the exercise and move on to the next piece. Okay? Any questions about that? You won't need to move. I'm only going to ask you to share one of those questions, and it's the one around sharing your gifts with the person sitting next to you. Okay. Give you a few minutes to think about it, and then I'll let you know when the next time marker is. So, just really quickly, just by a show of hands, how many people found that really, really quite easy to do? Hands up. How many people struggled coming up with 3 things they're really good at? Hands up. Oh my gosh, really, folks? If I had asked, I saw some of the grimaces on your faces. It's like you needed some Metamucil or something. It was. Does it feel? Now, if I had asked, I want you to think about 3 things where you think you could do a better job or learn more about. Look at all the nods. Yeah, oh yeah, that I could have whipped off Conte, no problem. So why I ask for folks to think about their gifts is because it's not an easy thing to do, and we're not asked to do it very often. And, is that me? Okay, so can I not walk? Is that the deal? Am I to stay stationary? I will stay here. I will stay here. I will not move now. Thank you. Did a bit of modeling. I did a lot of before work for Hair Club. So, you may have seen my forehead in infomercials. It's not an easy thing to do. We oftentimes can focus very easily on what our areas of growth are, what we want to be better at. Or when we've had a really, really hard day, we tend to focus on what didn't go well, what was broken, or the pressures that we face. And I think it's important to be in touch with where we want to grow and how we want to improve. Please know that. It's critical. It's important. All I'm trying to do with that exercise is a couple of things. One of them is to bring some balance to that equation. That when you're thinking about where you want to go, how you want to do things differently, how you want to change and learn and grow, balance that off with, and here's what I'm really good at. Here's what I'm really good at. Because knowing what you're really good at will help you, not only in your career, but in building the relationships that you hope to build or want to build or have already built. Right? So knowing that is critical. Because the second thing is, every day in every way, we need to bring our best selves to our work. Every day in every way, we want to put out what we're good at and share that as much as possible with the folks with whom we work, the students whom we serve. Right? We want to try and put out our best. The third thing is, when we know our strengths, right? We tend to be really good at what we love, or it's easier to love what we're really good at. Either way you look at that equation, it's really important to live in your strength place. And if you can find a way to live in your strengths, I think you'll be able to survive the rocky days a little more easily. We can't do any of that if we don't spend some time going within, if we don't spend some time reflecting. When I say that word, sometimes there's a connotation or a connection to that is about spirituality, about personal development and growth, and those 2 things are absolutely true. What I want to talk to you about today is that it is a critical component of leadership and of relationship development and in building a good, strong network. Reflection is critical. Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't even move. I apologize. So self-awareness is critical to empowering yourself and empowering others. And there's a great quote by Warren Bennis who talks and says, unless leaders know their own strengths and weaknesses, know what they want to do, and why they want to do it, they cannot succeed in any but the most superficial sense of the word. And acquiring that self-knowledge demands reflection. So think about it. Moving away from any other idea you have around the power of reflection, I want you for a moment to put it in an organizational context. It is critical to development and to leadership and to moving forward that we create space, we create a leadership structure, we create a work environment that facilitates some opportunity to reflect. So I really want to push that concept with you because it's not just something we do to stay grounded, which is important. It's something the organization will need to build on the innovative foundation that we have now created for ourselves. We really will need to do this. And it's also going to be critical when we know ourselves, we're better at reaching out and connecting with others. So here's the great thing. Well, Tony, how do I do that? There are a million ways to do this, right? And it can be as individual as each of us are in this space right now. One place you can start is to go to human resources and look at the offerings that they have in organizational and employee effectiveness. They have amazing tools and workshops that they can either come out and do for your team or introduce you to as an individual that you can explore on your own that will facilitate some self-awareness and reflection. They will give you a tool to make that easy. So if you don't know where to start, please start with them. There are numerous tools out there. This concept became very clear to me because of Chuck Evans, who Kevin will know because he graduated from the same program, and I think he's both our favorite prof, yes. He does this whole piece on self-assessment. It's an entire module that we do for a week with him. And it was so profoundly powerful to me to realize that this work, knowing self, creating space for reflecting, is critical to successful leadership. So, in some way, your first homework assignment, other than staying warm, is to explore what kind of reflection tool will work for you. How can you create space in two ways? As a Mac employee who does not have direct reports, how are you going to do that for yourself and model that for the peers with whom you work? As a leader and a supervisor of other employees, Mac or OPSU, how are you going to build this into your annual performance strategy? How are you going to facilitate and model for your staff? I want you to get to know yourself better. I want you to engage in some time to reflect. How are you going to create space? We can all look up and say, you know, there's no time, we're too busy. Absolutely, all those things are true. Short-term pain for long-term gain. If you can create an opportunity for your staff to think a little bit about themselves differently or give them some tools to do some of that self-analysis, trust me, it will have a profound impact. So, these two pieces I think are critical to as we talk about how are we going to go out and change or continue to do what we need to do together. This self-awareness and reflection is also critical to building relationships. I cannot believe how quickly time is going by. So if I'm going too fast, please let me know. So when I think of networking, I just put up these quotes because they kind of in some way resonated or connected to what I was trying to say. We have Helen Keller, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. Now I actually think that alone we can do a lot. We can do a lot as individuals. But the essence of this is coming together. Coming together, we could do so much more. Talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence wins championships. It's Michael Jordan. He plays that one sport where there's a hoop and a ball, and it goes. I think it's soccer. I don't know. And then Henry Ford, coming together is the beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success. So why I talk about networks is because when I initially thought about this workshop, we are moving at ever more increasing paces, right? We're moving faster and faster, and we are being expected to do more, right? And some of that is actually really exciting, and I think we want to do that, right? I think we want to do that. Some of it can also be stressful. So if we have staff who are reporting to us, or if we are individual contributors ourselves wondering, now what? I don't have, there's all this talk about, for example, the innovation agenda. We're an innovative school, we're a city builder. How does my role, what do I do as an individual contributor to connect with that sense of innovation or that goal of city building? My daily deliverables are so intense and so heavy, I really don't have much space to do much more than what I'm doing. And what I challenge you to think about is that you don't do it alone. And that you don't do it alone. And that you start, if you haven't already, that you become conscious and deliberate about building an informal network for yourself. So there are two kinds of organizational networks. There is the formal network. Tony Conte reports to Heather Lane Vatier, who reports to Mohammed Lashami, who reports to Sheldon Levy. Org structure. Find it on all of our websites, who reports to whom. That is one formal structure. The informal structure, though, The one that actually gets stuff done, more and more leadership research is proving this, is the informal networks. The informal networks that are created between each of you. And so while some of us may feel, what can I possibly have to do with that person, or how can I possibly reach out to connect and start building a network, you won't if you don't start. And a question that I'll ask for you whenever you feel like, I'm not moving now. No, I'm not even moving. I'm not even moving. A question I'll ask you when you bump into that, I just can't, here's a phrase I want you to start asking yourself right after. But what if you could? But what if you could? I can't do that. I really can't. But what if I could? So I had an experience with a staff member. Actually, this was a team that I supervised at McMaster University, where we were on new territory. We had just created a whole new leadership infrastructure at McMaster. And there was a lot of, we can't do that, especially early on in the development of this leadership team. And all I started saying is, but what if we could? Well, Tony, you're not listening. What I'm saying is we can't. But what if we could? Well, we just can't. But what if we could? Well, we can't. But what if we could? Tony's really thick. Well, I guess if we could, we would have to not have this happen anymore. Okay. Well, I guess if we could, we'd have all the money in the world. Well, on top of that, well, I guess if we could, and the paradigm started shifting. So a phrase that I ask you to add to your lexicon of phrases is, but what if I could? So creating yourself a network or building relationships across the organization is very, very powerful and will help you as an individual. But if you step into your role as a leader, for those of us who are supervising staff, it's going to be really important for you to know, does your team have informal networks? So, networks, both formal and informal, are critical to the success. And Hansen and Crackard say, often what needs attention is the informal organization, the network of a relationship that employees form across functions and divisions to accomplish a task, and do it fast. So, I think of, and I hate to do this to my colleague Imra, but Imra in security does not report to the Vice-Provost students. I probably talk to Imra more than I talk to people within the line structure of my organization. When I have to pick up the phone and get an answer about something, I sometimes call Imra, doesn't report to me. We don't work in the same organizations, in the same department, but I get an answer from Imra and we get something going. Imra has called me. I don't know, do we have a thing when a student comes forward and does this? Do we have a thing that does that? Yeah, we do. Here's what you do. Or you let me go find that out. So Heather didn't tell me to call Imra. Lawrence didn't tell Imra to call me. We just have our deliverables. We got it done way quicker because we formed a relationship. Did I out us? Yeah. Right? How many folks kind of get what I'm talking about? Awesome. So when I say do less with more, when I say about how do I move forward from this place, your informal network is now a critical resource. Right? It is a critical resource. It's going to be that informal network that you're going to sit down with at Starbucks, at Tim's, or at Balzac's, and you're going to say, I'm done. I'm really burnt out. I don't know how to have this conversation with my boss. Help. It's going to be the informal network. So what I'd like you to do, your second homework assignment is, if you have that informal network, what I'd like you to do is acknowledge it and take really good care of it. We'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide. If you're wondering, where do I begin? You begin by just calling someone. Now, if you don't know who to call, I'm now going to invite you to call me. Not because I'm an expert, not because of nothing. Just because I love people and I could talk to that post for a month. Right? So on the scale of extroversion, I probably loop all the way back down right to introversion again. I go all the way around. So call me. Call me. 416. Right? Because I think what's critical here is build that relationship. For managers, for supervisors, one of the most valuable things you can do as you try to learn and be more successful and enhance productivity is try and map out those informal networks your direct reports have. You don't have to make it a big thing. Hey, I saw you had coffee with Imran Thursday for about 2.5 hours. I was there watching the whole time. Tony, I've inserted a chip in your neck, so now we know where you are all the time. I'm not saying that kind of mapping. Just have a sense of knowing your staff well enough to know who their go-to people are. And as a supervisor or leader, really reinforce and support that. Right? So for yourself as an individual, that informal network is critical. Working with your staff and empowering them and supporting their networks and knowing what they are, incredibly powerful. Any questions about that? So, how do we do all that? In 15 minutes left. And I have an exercise I want to do. So again, if I'm speaking too quickly, I'm sorry. Tell me to slow down. So there's some recipes, some things I want you to consider as you do this work. As you do the work of trying to find your passion and empower yourself, as you do the work of empowering the teams with whom you work, right? So first and foremost, you need passion for what you do. You need a lot of love. You need a lot of love. You need love for what you do. And if that's hard right now, if you're in a place of where I'm not really loving what I'm doing, then I want you to think about, what am I really good at? And spend some time giving yourself some love about your talents, gifts, and abilities. Hence that first exercise. Right? But that is really, really important to understand what motivates you, what empowers you, what makes you feel good. To think about those personal and professional relationships that need maintenance, care, and feeding. Relationships are, I think, foundational to anyone's success. Be it with you and your staff or with your peers, it is critical for you to invest time and energy in having a deliberate strategy for how you're going to take care of relationships and be intentional about each and every one. Oh my gosh, that sounds exhausting. And sometimes it is, but it's well worth it, right? It's well worth it. Heather Lane Vatier did a whole project this year called In Their Shoes Project. And it was an opportunity for her to sit in a 4th-year fashion design class. She blogged about it. She actually finally had, at the end of it, had her collection in the afternoon show of Mass Exodus. And it was an amazing, amazing experience for her. The key driver for that, for Heather, was trying to get in touch with what that experience is like for students, to put herself in the shoes of another, to understand what's happening. And what I put forward to you is that one of the most powerful skills, abilities, and gifts that you can have as a leader is the ability to empathize with those around you. It's not easy, and sometimes it can be challenging. Sometimes we think, well, I can't relate because I'm not actually in your shoes, and you have such a different experience from me that I can't relate. But you can. If you think about a person in distress, can you remember yourself at a time when you were in distress? If you think about a person who's really frustrated and feeling stuck, can you go back to a time when you were frustrated and feeling stuck? I think you can. I think you can. Being intentional, deliberate, and conscious of the ability and the gift of empathy will serve you well. Sometimes, one of the greatest things you could do when you're in a conflict situation with a peer member or a direct report is to say, I hear you. I hear you. Or to say, I think that might be really hard. And I know that at times, and I know it's a complicated labor environment, that's why you have HR here to help us with that. But if we boil it down to the human interaction, to be able to say, I get that's hard. I get that's hard. And you could go back to a time when you could think about trying to get something was really hard for you. 9 times out of 10, that person will see that. And it will open up. Now I'm cutting into Joanne's turf on her session. Every day in every way, strive to be the most authentic person you can be. This is not always an easy thing to do, but what I urge you to do is to bring your whole self to work and to facilitate opportunities for others to be authentic as well. How we do that? I think you have to learn the line of sharing what you can and being the most honest and transparent person you can be. So I have 3 things that I say when I work in difficult situations with, for example, student groups. Let me use that. In my work with student groups, oftentimes I'm dealing with conflict or difficult situations. I will say 3 things in the course of my introduction of my work with them. And I will say, your group and my group, we're at different sides of the organization, understood, and you are a separate organization and separate entity. Here's my commitment to you. If I know something and can tell you, I always will. You can count on me. If I know it and can tell you, I always will. If I know something but cannot tell you, I'm going to say that. I'm going to say I know the answer to that, but I can't tell you, and here's why. You may not like that, but it's truth. And that way, the third thing, when I say I don't know, trust that I really don't know, and I'll go off and find out. I think you could turn that around with relationships with your peers or with staff. When I tell you something, it's truth. If I can and I can't, if I know something and I can, I will. If I know something but I can't, I won't, and here's why. And when I say I don't know, I really mean I don't know, and I'll go off and find out. Have no idea how far that goes with people, because the first time they pick up the phone to call you, they know they're going to get a real response. Take that now to the idea of building a network. People need to know they can count on you. And there's this wonderful thing called reciprocity that's critical to any relationship or any network. And what I'm going to urge you to do in that relationship is always give more than you think you're going to get back every single time. I promise you, you will get back way more than you thought. Now, because I'm one of those people, agree or disagree, what you put out into the world comes back to you. Don't expect everything to come back to you at the same time. I was just really nice to you, and so now be nice to me. Sometimes that payback comes down the road. It's in the bank. It's in the bank. Deliver more than what you think you can. Exceed expectation. Exceed expectation. And most importantly, be authentic. It's tied to the next piece around being inclusive and open. We are a very diverse group. Our most diverse group on campus is our student group, for sure. But there's a great deal of diversity among faculty and staff. We have a whole unit devoted to diversity, equity, and inclusion. But that's not only their work to do. That unit may have that name. The work is all of ours to do. What they're here to do is teach us how to do the work everywhere else we are. We can't just leave it to them. Their work is our work. Right? So it's all of our jobs. As a peer, as a supervisor, that work is all of our work. The challenge with equity, diversity, and inclusion is sometimes we had lessons around you have to keep quiet. When you don't know, don't say anything. You'll make it worse if you bring it up. And what I ask you to do is use 3 words. Just use 3 words. Tell me more. I've never met anyone from the Hebrew faith. Tell me more. I've never met anyone who is gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender. Tell me more. I'm not familiar with that faith tradition. Please, tell me more. Invite dialogue. Don't shut it down. Same with your peer network. That's how you get to know each other. Create space for people to bring their authentic and whole selves to work and to feel like it's safe to be who they are with you. That's the informal network protection. I could be myself with you. And then what you could do is work with them to help them be themselves everywhere else. Energy. Oh my gosh, it's exhausting. I can't believe we're in May and we're all still standing. You know, it's always great. We start off in September. Oh my God, welcome everybody. Welcome to Ryerson University. I am so excited to see you. This is fantastic. I have lots of energy. I have answers. You have questions? I can answer them. Welcome, welcome. How are you? Just go there. Here's some more information for you. How are you finding everything? I could take care of that for you. September's awesome. But then there's a month called February. I call that the knuckle dragging month. It's February and you look up and you realize, oh my God, they're still here. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. So, many, many different ways you can cut this up. I'm going to say the word self-care. You're all going to go different places with that. Here's what I think about self-care. Everybody does it differently. So, I just went away for a week with my 2 cousins who celebrated a milestone birthday. They turned 50. I won't be turning 50 for another 25 years, so I'm good, right? I'm 25, right? So we went away for a trip, and I actually didn't do any Facebook or Twitter stuff. I did 1 Twitter post, and that was it. But I was saying to Carrie, so I said I unplugged, but what I did was a couple of times sitting out on the lanai looking at the Gulf and the sandy beach and the waves coming in with a glass of grape juice. I just scanned my emails and checked them. Tony, how could you do that? You were on vacation. That's not self-care. Sure it is. For me, because I didn't want to come back on Monday to the crushing number of emails. All of them marked urgent. There's that twitch I get again. Right? So whatever it looks like for you, it can be that you check your email while you're away. That's fine. The final thing is risk-taking. Whew, I've been going fast because I keep seeing that clock that's telling me. Here's the good news. You could practice taking a risk. Right? You can actually practice this, and you do small things. When I talk to student leaders, I'm not going to ask you to do this, but when I talk to student leaders, I talk about having the courage or taking a risk and doing something that is maybe silly but feels a bit different and courageous. And it's to twirl in public. Right? Because I do this twirling thing all the time, I'll ask them to go to the Eaton Center, go to H&M, and twirl. If no one's helping you, or you just want to cost on a pair of pants, twirl. You're going to have like 40 salespeople on you, and probably all the mall security as well. Right? Risk-taking is critical to leadership. It's critical to building relationships. So for those of us who maybe don't feel hardwired about this networking thing, I don't know how I'm going to build my network. And it's also, don't worry so much about size. Talking about the quality of the relationships you have. Right? Take care of the quality of the relationship, the quality of your network. Don't worry about you need to have 1,000 people in your network. Right? That's kind of an extroverted definition of success. I need to know 9 million people. This much. So you're going to have to step outside of that circle of comfort and take a bit of a risk. The good news is, courage is kind of like a muscle. It strengthens when you use it. Right? There's this quote I like, ships are safe in harbor, but that's not what ships are built for. Right? So, take a bit of a risk. I'm through that. And if I did this cute little, did you notice? Look. There it is. Here you got it. I spelled the word leader. So smart. 2 years in an MA, that's what I got. Okay. All right. So now what I'd like to do is, I assume we're gonna have an ability to go a little bit over time, or do we need to write 11:30? Because okay. Okay. So it's 11:29. What I was gonna do, and we can maybe what I'll do is I'll have Carrie come up, because what I'll do is I'll give you the exercise, and then we'll end with that. Because we are at time, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to chat with each other about one more thing. So maybe before the chaos ensues, please know that Carrie has to come back up for a second, say a few words about the next thing. What is it with this? What am I clicking? I'm not even moving, and I'm not passing gas, I promise. So what I'd like you to do next is something called a lightning round consulting exercise. And this again, Barbara Scheer introduced to us. I don't know that she created it, but it was a great experience. So, if we have a few minutes, or if you're so inclined, what I'd like you to do is I'm just looking around. They're still talking, so we're good. To get up and very quickly do the following thing. I want you to think about and answer the following question. What I really want to do or wish for is, and my obstacle right now. Those are the two things. What I really want to do right now, my current obstacle is. Okay? What I want you to do is this. I'm going to ask you to stand up and use the space, move around, and get to as many people as possible. You're going to do this quickly, so it's going to go like this. Imra, what I really want to do now is I want to go back to school. My current obstacle is I'm afraid to ask, or I don't know where to begin, or I don't know where to start. Imra's going to then take a minute to give me as many ideas as she can about what to do, and then we're going to switch. Imra's going to ask me, and I'm going to give her as many ideas as I can. So, critical question, key obstacle, and then you switch. All right? So I don't know if I'm just conscious of time, so I'm going to leave it to you to decide if we can go over, or if we should just end right there. Okay. So just for a few minutes, if you want to get started doing that. And then we will, actually, I think you should talk before because they're going to drift off. Some people are going to want to go. So why don't you close off? I'm going to have to turn that. No, hold on. Here we go.
Great. Before I close this off, I really want to thank Tony very much for spending the time with us today. It was very fast.
Ooh. Go ahead. So I just want to put my last slide.
But I think you'll all agree Tony's, one, very entertaining, and two, very authentic, because he lives what he's talking about every day, and we have the value of being able to see that in the work that he does. So thank you very much, Tony.
Thank you.
And this is for you on behalf of all of us. Thank you
you.
very much. And just before you do the exercise and then head down for lunch, I just wanted to say anyone who had asked for a special meal, they will be along the side with your name on it. So we'll just go through the exercise and then feel free to head back downstairs to the Coca-Cola Lounge, which is where you were, for lunch. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'm just going to, so one of my favorite quotes is Maya, and I think it's important to realize that in the relationships that you build, that they may forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. I think that is truth. And if you wanted to give me a call and go for a coffee, just call me at 2088 or give me an email, okay? And thanks so much for coming. Whew. Jeez, that was so fast. Holy shit, Carrie Ann.